remains in this high-profile case still have not been found. Crystal Daniels won't cooperate with investigators, but she did have contact with a fellow inmate. And now that former inmate talked with News Channel 5's Nick Barris.
Joe Clyde's parents are both locked up here in the Dixon County Jail. Now, since their arrest more than 3 weeks ago, the sheriff tells me that they've processed several inmates here at the jail, and as you're about to see, at least one of them has spent time with the mother. That would be Crystal Daniels. She admitted to being in the house when her husband beat Joe Clyde to death and knew he disposed of the body. But unlike her husband, Crystal is charged with aggravated child neglect and not criminal homicide. She's alone in a cell.
I literally was beside her cell.
Amy Rigdon Warden was booked into the jail on a misdemeanor charge and spent 4 hours last week in a holding cell right next to a cell with a woman she immediately recognized as Crystal Daniels.
I just kind of kept watching her and just seeing, like, what is her mindset? Like, how does she act? You know, does she act like this monster that, you know, we think that she is, or like her husband is?
Rigdon Warden says it was difficult to talk because they were separated by plexiglass and not bars. At first, Crystal was asleep in her empty cell, no books, TV, or radio.
I caught her blanket, pillow, sheet, and the toilet, and that was it.
Rigdon Warden did notice this photo of Joe Clyde taped to the outside of Crystal's cell and says the mother's eyes kept going to it.
She leaned her head against the glass, right where the picture is at, and she looked at it, and then she just kind of took her fingernail and tapped it a couple times. And then she just kind of hung her head, turned her body away.
Rigdon Warden says Crystal seemed depressed, refusing to eat and flushing her food down the toilet. As for the whereabouts of the boy's body, Crystal never made any mention of her son. As it stands now, Joe Clyde's mother and his father are both still locked up here in the Dixon County Jail, each still on $1 million bond. Nick Barris, News Channel 5.
And as we first reported, his mother, Crystal, is seeking a divorce from behind bars. But as News Channel 5's Nick Barris tells us exclusively, Joe Clyde's father won't agree unless Crystal comes clean about what really happened to the boy.
This is the latest twist in a criminal case that frankly has stagnated. Joe Clyde's parents, Crystal and Joseph Daniels, remain locked up separately awaiting trial next year. Now, we know there is a divorce battle, as well as likely a change in the charges against Crystal, which could alter the way this case is prosecuted. Remember, 5-year-old Joe Clyde disappeared from his Dixon County home in April of last year. Defense attorneys point out his body has never been found, and there's no physical evidence of foul play.
There's been no blood of Joe Clyde found on anything to this point in time.
But authorities do consider Joe Clyde to be dead. His father, Joseph, confessed to killing him, but recanted. Still, Joe Clyde's mother, Crystal, told a TBI agent she saw Joseph beating him and could not help.
Did she say that she was physically unable to get close to Joe Clyde because Joseph Daniels threatened her?
She made a statement as to that, yes.
In fact, Crystal claimed that Joseph Daniels assaulted her.
She claimed that he took a swing at her.
So Joseph is charged with homicide, and now Crystal wants to distance herself from him. In a letter to me this past summer, she wrote of divorcing Joseph.
There's definitely, a sign that there's a fracture there.
However, we've learned Joseph refuses to sign any divorce papers unless his wife tells the truth about what happened to Joe Clyde. Crystal's story hasn't changed, and she is currently charged with aggravated child neglect. But now there's this. Based on that testimony from the TBI agent who said Crystal was threatened by her husband, her charges could be downgraded to accessory after the fact. That is a far less serious crime and would likely mean her case will be severed from her husband's, meaning that they would not stand trial together come next August.
Morning, exclusive video evidence that is sure to be part of the high-profile Joe Clyde Daniels case. Nick obtained a copy and is here with the first look in the 5 Alert update. Good morning, Nick.
Yeah, interesting. This is some of the first video and photos that I've seen showing the 5-year-old with his parents. Keep in mind that Joseph, the father, is charged with homicide and the death of his son, the mother with child neglect, but the boy's body has never been found. Now, let me explain what you are going to see right here. The video is from when Joe Clyde's parents took him for a sleep study. This was just a few weeks before he disappeared. Now, a sleep study is when doctors observe and take video to determine sleep patterns. This video was shot in the dark overnight in a sleep lab, and you'll notice Joe Clyde here is just rolling around on his father. And you'll also notice he's wearing the same pajamas with a skeleton pattern that he was wearing when he disappeared. So why the study? I'm told Joe Clyde's teachers noticed he was always tired in class, sometimes falling asleep. The grandparents say that Joe Clyde was not a sound sleeper and that he would often wake up in the middle of the night and then sometimes even wander outside of the home. On more than one occasion, he'd be missing from his bed and they would find Joe Clyde out in the yard. Now, the sleep study was to determine if there was a better way to help the child sleep through the night. So how does this factor into the case? Well, the grandparents and Joseph, the father's attorney, have told me that Joe Clyde may have wandered out of the house the night he disappeared, and their theory is that he was possibly abducted. And it is very likely that the jury will see this video at trial for the defense.
My kid was missing, then I would want everybody to be looking for it.
Yeah. It was a case that shook Dixon County to its core.
I don't know what I would do if it were me. So, I want to help.
April 4th, 2018, Joe Clyde Daniels, a 5-year-old little boy with autism, was reported missing from his home. Tennesseans did what they do best. Volunteered to search.
The field looks pretty deep. He could be laying down or something, but I feel like the helicopters would have seen it.
But then, just 4 days later, a break in the case. The boy was still missing, but investigators had their suspect. His father, Joseph Daniels.
And so began a 3-year legal process full of hearings and unexpected delays. The case was followed intently here in Nashville, across Middle Tennessee, and for some, across the world.
Then, on June 3rd, 2021, came Joseph's trial.
All right, good morning, everyone.
The state presented more than 250 exhibits and dozens of witnesses were questioned. But the most consequential was Alex Nolan.
Well, I woke up from this loud bang. I didn't go in there immediately, but
I know this is tough. I know it's tough.
Now 11 years old, Joe Clyde's half-brother had to testify against his own stepfather with other family members in the courtroom. Given his age, we won't be showing you his face.
The defendant started walking down the driveway?
yes,
What had he done with Joe Clyde?
he had him in his arms.
But his testimony wasn't without controversy. Alex's story had changed from the initial account he gave to law enforcement.
When did you change your story?
When did I change my story? Whenever I remembered. It was blocked off till a couple months ago.
The key piece of evidence was Joseph Daniels' hours-long interview with the TBI. At first, Joseph remained insistent he didn't know what happened to Joe Clyde until... Choking back tears, Joseph finally confessed. In closing arguments, the prosecution showed a video of Joe Clyde playfully upset because his teacher didn't give him an apple.
Don't be so mad. We're going to play a fun game instead, okay? No, you want an apple more than anything?
Which seemed to plant the seeds for a decision.
I'm told that the jury has reached a verdict.
After 9 hours of deliberation, on the 9th day of the trial.
As to the charge of first-degree murder and the perpetration of a felony crime, how did the jury find?
Guilty, sir.
So many questions remain, like the location of a body or motive. But we do know this. A community shaken to its core now has a few more answers. And perhaps one day, we'll find peace.